Welcome everyone to this lecture on the insert command. As you may have already guessed, insert allows you to add in or insert rows into a table. The general syntax looks like this. We say insert into, decide on the table name, and then also clarify which column values we're going to be providing. And then we say values and add in a list of values. Keep in mind, you can also have a syntax for inserting values from another table. This looks kind of similar. We'll say insert into table, decide on the columns we're inserting to, and then we say select those matching columns from some other table where some condition happens to be true. So something to keep in mind, especially for the previous statement of inserting from another table, the inserted row values must match up for the table, including constraints. So if one of your constraints was that the column is not null, then you must provide a value as you insert, otherwise you'll get an error. If you're grabbing information from another table and inserting it into your table that you're currently using, then you must make sure that those actual columns also match up for things like data type. Another thing to keep in mind is that the serial columns, especially for those primary keys, they actually do not need to be provided a value. Recall that serial is a sequence, so it's going to automatically update the next available integer for that row. Okay, let's go ahead and actually work through some syntax examples using pgadmin. All right, here I am inside of pgadmin. Let's go ahead and recall what we actually used for our account table that we created previously. To do that, I'm going to, in my query editor, say select everything from account. Run this, and you shouldn't get back any data because we haven't inserted anything yet. And I can see here I have user ID, username, password, email, created on, and last login. Recall that user ID is serial data type, so I don't need to worry about providing that. And also recall that the last login column didn't have any constraints, so I don't need to actually provide one of those. Everything else, I believe, had some sort of not null or unique constraint, so we will need to provide. So let's go ahead and show you how you can insert into this table. We're going to say insert into, and then the account table name, which was just account, and then the columns we're going to provide. We're going to provide a username, a password, an email, and then we'll also say created on. And then after this, we're going to say values, and then we provide the list of values. So let's go ahead and choose a username. We'll go ahead and have the username be Jose. The password, typically you don't save passwords as strings in a database. There'll be a hashed version of a password, but just for learning syntax, we'll say that Jose's password was password. The email, we'll go ahead and have this be jose@mail.com, just a made up address. And then make sure we say created on, so check for that typo there. So created on, make sure that matches up. And now we're just going to provide a timestamp. And in order to save time, instead of providing a long string code for a timestamp that includes the date and the time, I can actually use from our timestamp lectures the current timestamp functionality. So I can say current underscore timestamp. And you can review the documentation and our timestamp lectures for a full list of these sort of timestamp function calls. So this is just going to insert those values here into the table. So let's go ahead and run this. And you should see something that says query returned successfully, etc. And under data output, we'll still see the same blank because we haven't actually asked again for the information from account. So let's go ahead and delete this. And then say select everything from account. Run that, and notice we get back user ID 1, so it was automatically created for us. We have Jose, password, jose@mail.com, and then we have the created on, and notice the last login is currently null. So we were able to successfully insert into this new table. Now let's go ahead and practice inserting into the job table. So recall the job table, if we take a look at it here, has the columns job ID and job name. Recall job ID was serial, so I don't need to worry about actually providing a job ID. So what I'll do here is I'll say insert into, and then we have the job table. The columns I'm going to insert is just the job name. So what I'll do here is say job underscore name. Then I'll say values that I'm going to insert here. And job ID is created automatically through Serial, so I just need to say job name. Let's go ahead and have the job name be like an astronaut. So we'll say astronaut. Go ahead and run this. We get back query returned successfully. Let's check on that by saying select everything from job, run it, and now I can see I have a job ID 1, job name astronaut. And let's add one more job just so we can explore this job ID. So we'll say insert into job, and we're going to insert a job name. And we'll say values. Let's go ahead and have it be president. So we'll say president as another job, run that again. And if we check out the table again, select everything from job, notice that the job ID is automatically being increased for us, which is really nice. Okay, so we have this job table with some job options, and we have the account with basically kind of our fake entry into the count. Let's go ahead and finalize everything by actually doing one connection for an account job, essentially assigning the account I've made myself to a job. That's going to be a little different because we have that foreign key set for us. So what we're going to do here is we'll simply say, like we did, insert into. We will say account job, pass in a user ID, a job ID, and a hire date. I'm going to expand on this just so we can see the whole thing. Then we'll select the values we're going to insert, and we'll say user ID is 1 because that matches up with the first person we made in the account table. We'll go ahead and have them be an astronaut, so that's job ID number 1. And then the hire dates, let's just say current timestamp. So we run this. We get back query returned successfully. So let's go ahead and delete this. Say select everything from the table, which was account job. Run that, and I can see user ID 1, job ID 1, and a hire date. Let's go ahead and show you what happens if we try to insert someone whose user ID doesn't exist. So I'm actually going to do Control-Z a few times to get back this command. So just Control-Z a few times should bring you back to insert into account job. And I'm going to insert, let's say, user ID 10 with job ID 10 at my current timestamp. Currently, we don't have a user with user ID 10, and we don't have a job ID with job ID 10. So when I try to run this, notice what happens. We get this error. And the reason we're getting this error is because it's violating the foreign key constraint. So just like we have to provide information for things that are not null, we have to make sure that when we're inserting something that has a foreign key constraint, that it actually exists in the other tables. This is the exact kind of behavior and error you want. Otherwise, we're doing some sort of link that doesn't actually exist. There was no user ID of 10, there was no job ID of 10. So keep that in mind. These constraints will do things like stop information being inserted into it if it actually violates the constraint. Okay, so that's the details for how to insert data into a table. We'll see you at the next lecture.